Lorenzo, I want to share with you, talk about something that is actually a pretty important part of businesses. Not something that I am involved in, but I still think it's a useful topic. I want to talk about word of mouth marketing, and I want to, in particular, talk about two aspects of word of mouth marketing that I think are quite interesting, and both of them are related to research and studies that were done. So the first aspect of it is in the 60s, something really surprising happened in New York City. Um, there were these apartment buildings, and they were all very close to each other, and and a murder happened in one of them, and the window was open. This was during the summer months, and the window was open, and many of the neighbors actually heard the screaming. And when after the event had happened, the police actually interviewed them to understand why they, like, because 30 40, not 30 40, but 12 neighbors heard the screaming, but not one person called the police to say that I'm hearing something really bad happening, and they could have essentially caught the murderer or whatever it is. And everyone's response was that, oh, I just assumed that someone else is going to call the police. Like, I heard it. I just thought that, I'm not that close to this place. Someone else might have. And I think this is very relevant for word of mouth marketing, because when we send out emails requesting word of mouth marketing, because remember, it's much cheaper for a brand to get Lorenzo to invite his friends versus spending paid advertising money to acquire new customers. Plus, also, you're a better advocate for their brand versus them, right? So it's a very useful method, but the way they do it is wrong. They reach out, we reach out to Lorenzo, and we say, hey, Lorenzo, we're so happy you love our brand. It'll really help us if you can tell your friends about us. This is not a specific enough request. And I think the more specific way to do that is the more specific you can be, the more the higher the probability that Lorenzo is going to spread the word. So, for example, if you are a chocolate brand and you are selling, one of the chocolates that you're selling is like a vegan chocolate, and Lorenzo has really bought the vegan chocolate 4 or 5 times, you could reach out to Lorenzo and say, Lorenzo, our chocolates are really popular, but for some reason, vegan chocolates haven't really caught on. And clearly, we can make out you are one of the few people that really enjoy them. We would really appreciate it if you could, spread the word. Now, in this case, you're really focusing on the specificity of that thing that Lorenzo bought. So there's a higher probability of him acting on it. But the other way of doing it is to reach out to Lorenzo and say, Lorenzo, I'm not going to ask you to tell 10 friends about us, because that's just too much. I just want you to think about one friend who really appreciates good quality chocolate. If you can just tell that one friend about us, it'll really make a difference to me. And I think, again, the specificity of that request is going to have a much higher likelihood of Lorenzo knowing what to do with that. Because I think what happens sometimes as consumers is like, we get this information, but we don't know how to act on it. Like, if someone comes to me and says, Rishi, can you tell your friends about us? Well, how? I don't know what the mechanism is. But if someone says, can you think of one friend? Yeah, I do have one friend in my mind. And so there's a higher likelihood. It's not a guarantee, but there's a higher likelihood. What is your thought?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like micro effort, right? Like, the more I think about, okay, let's think about who else, could benefit from this product, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to say is I almost feel like even that email when you're at, or that landing page, whatever, right? Whatever the marketing message around the referral we're placing it needs a sales pitch, right? Like, like a sales pitch at the end of the day, it's a prompt to motivate somebody to do something, right?
That's
to
right.
take an action. If you and I don't have kids, but we both have friends that do have kids, right? And I know that the way my friends talk to their kids, whenever they want their kids to do something, they don't tell them, oh, do this, right? No, they're like, okay, if you want to go to the movies tomorrow, you need to do this, right? There has to be an element of motivation in order to make an action. So I think it's for anything. If you want somebody to go from A to B, there has to be some sort of motivation. And that's exactly what, a sales pitch for a referral would look like.
I think you're right. And I think I talk to clients about this all the time. And I think it's something we are kind of uncomfortable with this idea. But I kind of tell clients that essentially everything that we're doing are sequence of sales pitches. Like, and if you don't think of it as a sales pitch, you're going to continue kind of being at a disadvantage, because you're like, you're telling yourself lies by saying, I want to inform I want to inform the consumer, I want to educate the consumer. The thing is that it's not specific enough. Sales pitch has a specific outcome. And I'm not saying that you can serve the customer all you want. You can do all these wonderful things, but it has to be tied to an outcome. When you
Yep.
say that I want to educate the buyer, well, how are you measuring education? And so the benefit of a sales pitch mentality is that it's very, very clear. So I think it's a very useful thing. And I think, Lorenzo, we in one of our other riffing videos, by the way, if you guys are not subscribed, please subscribe. I don't remember the title of that riffing video, but where you were talking about funnels on the product page, right? That's the title. And that's the kind of idea you had, was like, think of everything as like a different sales pitch. And actually, apologies, you actually had a specific episode where you were talking about upsells, right? And cross sells and
Yep.
sales pitches for them, which I'd never heard of before. So,
Yep.
So I think that sales pitch mental model is so useful.
Totally. Talk about the other study.
So the other aspect of word of mouth marketing is also based on a study, and this study is from a bar or a restaurant brewery in Chicago, where they were trying to get new customers to come into their brewery. And they were of the opinion that, we need to use our customers to do word of mouth marketing. So they broke their customers into two groups. They broke them into a group of heavy loyals. And these were people that came to the bar very regularly and had been coming to the bar for a long time. And then they found this other group called new loyals. And new loyals were people that have been coming pretty regularly, but they've only discovered the bar like 3 or 4 months ago. They went to both of these groups and made them a coupon offer. And the offer was, bring in your friend and we'll give a certain discount. Now, their expectation was that people that are heavy loyals are going to do the bulk of the word of mouth marketing, because clearly they love our brand. What they found, surprisingly, was that the new loyals drove an incremental $190 more in sales versus the heavy loyals. And so I think it's very interesting to understand that. And I know you have some thoughts on this, but the basic idea was that I think when someone does something, is used to something, they're naturally over time, their excitement level goes down. And so it becomes part of their lifestyle. So for these people that were heavy loyals, they already enjoyed this bar. And so there wasn't that buzzing excitement to spread the word with their friends. Whereas the people that had recently discovered it were like, oh yeah, I should tell my friends about it. And the reason why this, I think, matters so much is because sometimes as brands, we actually make a mistake where we go to our customers for word of mouth marketing very late in the relationship. So they've used the product for a year, for example. And by that time, the product just might be not that magical to them anymore.
Or too early as well, when they
early.
haven't even received the product yet, right?
Right, exactly right.
I've seen some referral, kind of like messaging on a thank you page when you just bought the product.
Yep.
What? I haven't even bought the iPhone yet, or I haven't even bought this protein powder, and you're already. I don't know how good or bad it is. I've no idea, right?
No, you're exactly right. So I think calibrating that timing is so important. But the point is that don't wait too much is the lesson here.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I want to give an example of an analogy of this, right? It's like a love story or like a wedding, right? Like, sorry, a marriage. I'm not married, but I've seen a lot of people that are married. And it's like at the beginning of the love story is where the highest peak of happiness and love and excitement, blah, blah, it is, because you just met the person and you fell in love with the person. You have these amazing expectations. And then the more years pass by, the more that becomes your normal life, right? So it's not that the love is not there anymore, obviously. You just take it for granted. And I'm not saying like it's just common like anything, right? The other thought I had is the way I think about also what you just said about, new and very, old loyal customers. It's also very difficult for a company to keep on blowing people's mind. If I've been a customer for a company for, like, let's say, like, let's talk about the top company in terms of like blowing people's expectations and doing, like, giving people a great
Let me guess,
customer.
Apple.
Yeah, it could be Apple, it could be, I don't know, like whatever company you pick it, right? I think blowing people's minds, every, let's say, year, couple of years, it's extremely, extremely, extremely
100%.
so I think that's also why it's quite normal to get used to that. Like, imagine if every year company says, okay, I want to blow people's mind even more, right? Just like my loyal customers, I think it's like, wow, like, I don't think a lot of people do that. A lot of companies do that. So I think it's like, first of all, normality becomes normal. And then second, the company usually doesn't really do anything to, over deliver when they already acquired a customer.
No, I agree. And in the spirit of being specific with word of mouth marketing, I want to make a special request to our listeners. Please subscribe to our channel and just think of one friend in your marketing friends network, not 20 friends, just one friend. And if you can share this episode, or you can pick any other episode that you think is relevant to them and share it to them, it would mean a lot to us, and it'll allow us to help more marketers. So we will see you again soon. Take care.
So